niggas love the clout chase. That's the shit they glorify. I don't even try hard. This gangsta shit immortalized. No records of a trace. When your crime is organized, no man is over me. I'm highest in the morning time. Low key in the birds when I cross the state borderlines. Spin your block and horrified. Fuck you, bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga. Hold the line. My nutsack, I'm grabbing mine. Both of mine, quit holding mine. You gon' get this work and some overtime. You know the vibe. Little nigga, you know it's me. I don't need them to know it's me. When conflict get crucial, I can't help but do them bogusly. Smoke you like a stogie, beat you like you stole from me. Niggas out of body, put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot at you waking in the moment, niggas toast for you. My niggas do the most for me, that's what they supposed to do. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough and test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough and test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, you came with me, gang. You know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move critically. When that shit get critical, no peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never told another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, then slide on your funeral. It ain't about the clout chase, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't critical. Cradle to the casket, the life we live is typical. God body, cause I will depart you from your physical. Niggas living fantasies, act like they was the only one. Don't talk to me about these streets. Fuck you think you know me from? Just cause you related to them gangsters, that don't make you one. I ain't got no bloodline in these streets, but I can feel me some. I ain't got no mercy for this bitch, and she outside with us. They ain't gon' demon time, we bring them hell and the fire with us. All this smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough.
What up? What up? What's good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. What's cracking? What's cracking? Yes, I know y'all see the title. We back at it again. Yes, keeping along this thing. We winding down in this great holiday of ours. Called a Feast of Dedication, better known as Hanukkah, right? So yeah, we like I said, we just working our way through the Maccabean history, the Hasmonean history of that, right? The Hasmonean dynasty. So yeah, we we back at it. So yeah, hold on one second.
I want to.
But yeah, so we back at it. But yeah, so I know y'all see the title. I know y'all see the title. One second. But yeah, so yeah, title For God and for Country, a Maccabean Tale, right? So yeah, we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna get into the mindset of these, of our ancestors and what was going on during the oppression of the Greeks and stuff when they were taking over our land when we was, back in in our homeland, right? So we're gonna get into it. We're gonna start with Second Maccabees chapter 6, right? So we're gonna start right with that. But of course, before we get started, giving all praises to the Most High, and we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly knows as Jesus Christ, right? So yeah, we're gonna get into Second Maccabees. So yeah, So yeah, there was the Greeks and stuff. They was in power during this time. Around 300 BC circa. You know, um, so they was ruling, right, and and we were fighting for our sovereignty. Fighting for our land, right, and eventually got it. But so yeah, we're gonna get right into it though. And it says not long after this, the king went. It says not long after this, the king sent a old man of Athens to compel the Jews to depart from their laws of their fathers, and not to live after the laws of God. So they sent like a elderly man, you know, to go and try to compel them to to leave their customs and to follow into the Greek fashion of life, right? And it says, and to pollute also the temple of Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter. So they wanted to try to in modern day terms gentrify our holy temple, renovate it, um and so they wanted them to add the Jupiter worship in there, and do all their type of sacrifices that that they do in our temple. And of course, if you know the law and and how to how we conduct ourselves in the temple, that's a no, right? And because we only follow one God, right? And it says there's no other God beside me, and we can't put no other God beside him, right? So excuse me. So then it says and to pollute also the temple of Jerusalem, and to call it the temple of Jupiter, Olympus, and and that in God in governance of Jupiter, the defender of the strangers, as they did desire that dwelt in that place. So they wanted the people to change their worship in there, right? Change the way of business up in there, right? Get new management up in there, right? And add their Greek gods into the temple for worship. And it says, the coming of mischief was sore and grievous to the people, for the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, and reviving by the Gentiles, who dealt with harlots, and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places. So so not only are they implementing their form of worship of their gods into our temple, they're doing lewd acts, to say the least, inside the temple, right? And some people can probably in the modern days can probably tell a story about seeing or doing some lewd acts in the church, right? A lot of lewd things going on in these godforsaken churches that they got, right? So there was profaning the Most High temple by doing these type of acts and implementing their way of life, right? And these are the Greeks, right? And and it says, and besides that, brought in things that were not lawful. So it's they started sacrificing things that was not lawful into the temple. They started bringing things that is not allowed. Doing all type of sacrilegious stuff, right? Because the people that we're dealing with are godless people, right? They don't follow the same thing that we follow. And it says, the altar also filled with profane things which the law forbidded. Neither it was lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath or the ancient feast days, or profess himself to be a Jew. So they even passed laws where you couldn't even identify yourself as a Israelite, as a Jew, right? You couldn't keep your holidays. You couldn't do, what we doing now, keeping our, feast of dedication. We couldn't do that, right? So again, by the time you get to the New Testament, and the epistles and the, that is written, and then the apostles that are, out there, doing their thing. And when Christ is speaking to the, about going to the lost sheep of Israel. So these are the people that is speaking of, because their descendants, kept on these customs, these Greek and Roman customs, all the way to the time of Christ. So it became a split between the people of Judea and the people that were scattered abroad. So the people that were living in Judea, they consider themselves the real Israelites, the real Jews. And everyone else that was scattered in those different lands that was keeping the Greek and Roman customs, they consider them, Gentiles, right? Just like everyone else, right? So if you can understand that, right, then check this out, right? Because I even had a little talk with a good old Chat GPT about this, right? And because some people in this fashion, are under the, have recently became under the understanding that, that these are like, other nations that are being, brought to and preached to about the gospel, right? But just I asked our dear brother, our dear AI brother, a question, right? So this is like partial of the conversation, because I forgot what was my original question. Forgot the original question that led to this, but so yeah, so so then then all right, here we go. So then I asked the question. So I'm like, are those Hellenistic Jews that the epistles and the apostles are preaching and teaching to? Are those the ones that Jesus called the lost sheep of Israel that are scattered, scattered, right? So that was, basically my question in short. So then he says, the Hellenistic Jews, those living in a diaspora and influenced by Greek culture, were a part of the scattered house of Israel. The apostles sought out. So again, so these are Hellenistic Jews that's living in those different provinces. When you read the book of Romans or Colossians and Philippians, all them, those are different things, because over here again, we see how they became, far as like customarily following the ways of what we'll call Gentiles, or the, for the, the Greeks and the Romans, because it says right here, neither was it lawful, meaning they passed laws and ordinance, right? They made a law. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath day or ancient feast days, or profess himself to be a Jew. So they wasn't even allowed to call themselves a Jew, to identify themselves as, a Israelite, right? So over here again, it says, in short, yes, the Hellenistic Jews, those living in the diaspora, influenced by Greek culture, were a part of the scattered house of Israel that the apostles sought out. Here is the breakdown of how these groups connect. It says the lost sheep identity. It says, when Jesus spoke of the lost house of Israel, Matthew 15 and 24, he primarily referencing the Jewish people who had neglected by their spiritual leaders, while his own earthly ministry focused on those in Judea and Galilee. So again, understanding that history, the people in Judea didn't deal with the ones that was outside of Israel. That's why it says right here, it says he primarily referencing the Jewish people who have been neglected by their spiritual leaders, because again, we start looking at them as Gentiles, right? And by the time you get to Peter and he had that dream about call no man uncommon or unclean, because at that time we were looking at our people, like, man, you ain't, how we nowadays will call somebody that's, we'll call them an Oreo or a Tom or something like that. Then, and my personal favorite, a Stephen, right? So it's the same way how we were looking at those, people that was living outside, outside of Judea, if you can understand that, right? So it says, while his own earthly ministry focused on those in Judea and Galilee, the term broadly encompassed the entire house of Israel, including those scattered among the nations. It says, after the resurrection, the Great Commission, it says the apostles and the writers in the epistles specifically target the diaspora, the scattered ones, right? So now again, that's cutting the whole philosophy of when Christ was here, he did preach, for the Israelites, but then after he died, then it became all people. Like, Christ was like talking to his disciples and stuff, like, look, check this out. Hey, look, right now, yo, it's all about us, right? But check this out though. I'm going to get crucified though, right? But then after I get crucified, then go teach everybody. But don't teach everybody right now, and God forbid, don't tell anybody that we're talking like this, right? So this is a secret, right? Don't even write it down. When you, like, years later, when you decide to write your story and tell your story when you walk with me, don't put that in there. Don't put that in there, right? This is between me and you, right? That's what you have to believe to think, to believe that, right? Because again, it says, after the resurrection, the Great Commission expanded the mission. The apostles and the writers of the epistles especially specifically target the diaspora of the scattered ones. Then it give examples, like Christ's little brother James, right? Surely he might know what's up, because that's Christ's little brother. Let's see what it says. It gave us James 1:1, right? Let's get James 1:1 real quick. Because they grew up in the same house together, right? James and Jesus, right? Yahweh Shai. So surely, perhaps, maybe, he just might know a little something. So let's see what he said in James chapter 1. If I can find it. Like that. Uh-oh. I thought it was right over there. Boom. Okay, all right, here we go. Boom. So James 1:1 says this. James, a servant of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes. Who's he writing to? This is the very first verse in chapter 1 of the book of James. To the 12 tribes. So that means everything that pertains after that verse is to what? To the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad. Greetings, right? So they understood that our people were scattered in these different nations. That's why James wrote his letter to those that were scattered outside of Israel, and he knew that, right? And so that means everything after James 1 and 1 is for Israelites, right? And so it says, then it gave us Peter 1 and 1, and it says, Peter, a apostle of Christ, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, and Asia, elect according to the foreknowledge, because some people say, well, yeah, strangers, right? You got that word strangers. Hold on, say like you. Gotta get on my AV department. So people say, well, yeah, I got the word strangers there, right? It says strangers. But then the next verse says this, elect according to foreknowledge of God of the Father. So who is the elect? The Israelites are the elect, right? So they are the elect of the foreknowledge of the Father, right? So again, and these the verses that, AI is given, I think Chat GPT might be an Israelite, He's bringing out the verses that we'll say. And it says, Paul's strategy was always to the local synagogues first to find the Hellenistic Jews, right? To find the Hellenistic Jews. It says, then it says, the book of Acts, Hellenistic or Greek-speaking Jews, they were exactly the kind of scattered Israelites who had lost their original language, Hebrew Aramaic, but remained a part of the covenant family Jesus came to gather, right? So they knew these things, right? Hold on, so I like it again. So, but yeah, they know these things, right? So, like it. So, they know these things, right? So then it says, so yeah, that's, so they knew these things, right? So these are that's what's going on over here when it says, neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath day or an ancient feast or profess himself at all to be a Jew. So they passed laws so that we couldn't associate ourselves with our culture, our heritage, or none of that stuff. So by the time you get to the New Testament, that's why they are being referred to Gentiles. Not to say, okay, because I know you got some people out there, not to say every time you see the word Gentile, it's talking about Israelites. I'm not saying that. But, as far as who the gospel is being preached to, the Israelites were also being referred to as Gentiles. That's why Paul said, you were in time past Gentiles. So a Gentile is a ethnicity of one of those various nations. So now if you were born a certain ethnicity, you cannot then one day and say, hey, I want to be an Eskimo, right? You have to be born from the Eskimo stock. You cannot just say, I've been black my whole life. I want to try, I want to be Dutch. Let me be Dutch for a hot second, right? Let me be Dutch for the summer. You can't do that, right? So when he said that you were Gentiles, he's talking about the mindset and the culture that they were keeping. And now that they're understanding that, salvation is open to them, that they're coming back to the covenant, now they're dropping those Gentile customs and ways that they were keeping, right? So, I hope you understand. Hold on, I'll be right back. Yeah, still like here. Oh yeah. So yeah, so back to it though. So like, um, so it says neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath day or ancient feast or profess himself at all to be a Jew. In the day of the king's birthday every month, they were brought a bitter constraint. There was brought bitter constraint to eat sacrifices. So on the king's birthday and every month, they would constrain them and force them to eat the sacrifices, and of course, it's unclean food that we don't eat. So they will, force them to eat these things, right? And just like back in slavery, how we, attend to adopt what people would call soul food, and a lot of that stuff was like stuff that we were forced to eat, right? And so then it says, and it says, and when the feast of Bacchus, when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus, carrying ivy. So then they even forced us into a parade. They made us march in a parade and participate in it, and basically keep their worship their god, Bacchus, whatever dude is, right? So. And now, that's how America does it. America, we be all in a 4th of July parades and stuff nowadays, right? The Thanksgiving parades and stuff, you see us all up in it, right? And it's the same thing, right? And doing it way back then. Then it says, moreover, there went out a decree to the neighboring cities of the heathen by suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashion and be partakers of their sacrifices. So he's like, look, every surrounding city, look, if y'all see one of these Jews not keeping the laws, y'all know what to do, right? So he passed the law to basically police us, to make us, keep these laws in these different places that that he was controlling. Then it says, whoso would not conform themselves to the manner of the Gentiles should be put to death. Then might a man have seen the present misery. So it was a very horrible day for us in those times, right, when the Greeks were ruling, right? Just like similar to their proteges that's ruling now. We got recent history that we can pull from how brutal, these people are, right? And so it's wasn't a good time, right? That's why the Most High had to raise up these brothers of the Maccabees, these 5 brothers, and have them raise up an army to fight against these people, right? So that's why it's important that we celebrate this great holiday that we have, right? And because the Most High God, He protects His people, and He allows us to regain our sovereignty, back to our nation again, right? Through the Judas and his brothers, right? And Mattathias and so forth, right? And it says, for there were 2 women brought who had circumcised their children. So so now they done captured these two women, who they caught circumcising their kids, that they were still trying to keep the law. So then it says, whom when they had openly led around the city. So then they parade them in the city, made them march through the city, right? For ridicule and what's the other word? Humiliation and all that stuff, right? Just like what was it? Several years ago, in Texas, or was it Louisiana? Police had arrested a man, and he was on, the police was on a horse or whatever, right? And the police tied the man to the horse. At least could have had the decency to put him on the back of the horse, but nah, tied him to the side of the horse and walked him into town, for everybody to see, right? That's embarrassment, right? And that's what they did to this woman, and they let parade her through the town after they captured her, right? And what else they do? Let's see what else they do, because we're dealing with some wicked people here, right? And their children ain't no different, right? Let's see. It says, after they marched her to the city to humiliate her, it says, for there were two women brought who circumcised their children, whom when they had openly led around the city, the babies. Oh, this is crazy. So not only did they force them to march through the city, with these little sick, deranged, inbred, and we can say inbred because the Greeks were a bunch of cousin efforts, right? And brother and sister, efforts, and a bunch of MFers, right? Literally a bunch of MFers, right? So sick and deranged people, right? Cause a lot of that inbred and stuff that comes with mental illness, right? And we know that mental illness is passed through genetically, and I mean, and look what we got, right? So let's see what these people did. So it says, who when they openly led around the city, the babies, those little poor little infant children that they just got circumcised because they want to keep the laws of God. What did they do to these poor little babies? The babies hanging from their breasts. So they hung the babies, because these people are good for hanging people, right? You know what I'm saying? They love hanging. So they hung the babies, and the cruelty of it is not only, the whole thing is cruel, but the cruelty of these people, not only did they unalive the babies, they hung the babies from the mother's neck and made her walk to the, made them walk to the city like that. That's crazy, right? That's very sick and deranged. This is who we're dealing with. So when we call these people the devil, I think we can all see why, right? I mean, I think that's very agreeable why these people are devils. Even when we fast forward into our, modern history, when something called gator bait, right? When they used to take our little babies, right, tie them onto a little raft and send them off into the little marshes to try to capture alligators and, crocodiles, all because they want them a belt or a pair of leather shoes, right? So that's what they did. They did that back then, and then in recent history, you check the history of Florida, gator bait, right? That's what they do. So when we call them the devil, I think, it's not far-fetched to say why and understand why, right? So they had openly led around the city, the babies hanging at their breasts. They cast them down headlong from the walls. So then they took them and threw him over a cliff, threw him over the wall, right? So that's crazy. That's what they did, right? Then it says, in the other that had ran together into the cave nearby to keep the Sabbath, the others that had ran together into caves nearby to keep the Sabbath day, secretly being discovered to Philip, were all burnt together because they made a consensus to help themselves for the honor of the most sacred day. So, they trapped us in the cave, blocked us in, and burnt us alive inside the cave. That's what they did, right? So, and these the people we're dealing with. So by the time we get to the New Testament, by the time you flip this book and you start with Matthew, and you see that they're, referring to those as Gentiles and stuff, and you see how, you get to the part about Peter, having disdain for who he called unclean, right? Those are the Gentiles. But then the purpose of Christ, right? His death and all that cool stuff is to bring those that were scattered in the diaspora and allow them to understand, like, yo, it's all good now. Y'all can come back, come on back, everything's cool now. We done squashed the beef. Y'all can be part of the family again, right? That's why he says, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, right? To let them know it's all good, right? I died, what I'm saying? So all that stuff that was on before, following the Greeks and wearing togas and doing signify alpha, alpha step, omega step, kappa step, what I'm saying? All that, right? It's cool now, what I'm saying? Just believe on me, keep the laws and all that stuff, right? We good, right? So that's why you see that distinction in the New Testament with the Gentiles. But again, I'm not saying every time you see the word Gentile, it's talking about us. Of course, I'm not, just not be simple. But of course, when it's referring to the Israelites and salvation in the gospel, it's talking about us, right? So, and we can see reading this chapter how we got alienated from the Israelites, right? Then even too, when I said this before, like when Christ was talking to the lady at the well, she was in Samaria, and Samaria is a city in the northern part of Israel where also Israelites were living at, but that part was like basically Roman Greek dominated, right? So they were, although they were technically in the land of Israel, but again, if you was not in Judea, in Jerusalem, then you wasn't, they didn't consider you a fellow Israelite like them, right? So that's why, but yeah, so anywho, so then it says now I beseech those that read this book, that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for the chastising of our nation. Because the Most High said He's gonna bring these people against us, right? In the book of Daniel, and other places, so, and again, when you read the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 15, all the way down to 68, those are a list of punishments, that you can find that the Most High said whenever we disobey, He's going to do these things to us, to whip us back into shape. So, in allowing these other nations to rule over us and subjugate us is one of those things that it is listed, right? So he understood, by him being a Levite himself, he understood, the scripture. So that's why he's saying the things that he's saying. He says, now I beseech those that read this book, that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but that judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for chastising of our nation. And it says, for this is the token of the great goodness, when a wicked doer are not suffered any long not suffered any long time, but were with punishment, right? So, basically saying, look, I know what I'm telling you, the things that they did to us, I know it's messed up, but they gonna get theirs, because we got a God of justice, right? And let's get hold on. Let's get Jeremiah real quick. So it says, we can read this one first. So Jeremiah 30:11. It says, For I am with thee, said Yahweh, to save thee. Though I make a full end of the nations, rather I have scattered thee. So God says, although I'm going to destroy these nations that I scattered you into, right? He says, that's what it means by to make a full end. It says, boom, boom, boom. It says, for I am with thee, said Yahweh, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee. So God said, although I'm going to destroy these nations that I scattered you in, but I'm going to save you out of those nations that you are scattered to, right? So that's why our dear brother understand this. He says, now I beseech those that read this book, that they be not discouraged for these calamities, but they judge those punishments not to be for destruction, but for the chastising of our nation, right? Then it says, I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee unpunished. So that's why collectively we go through, as we go through, how we gotta, people like, now look, this is the secret right here, right? We're gonna expose the secret to the world, right? They're gonna understand, right? Unintentionally, but we're gonna tell it anyway. Unintentionally, well, I mean, is it unintentionally? I just said we're about to expose the secret to them. But so people say, well, man, black people, man, they special, man. They can go through anything, and they survive it, and they've been through this, they've been through that, and we also would say, like, man, they can't go through what we go through and survive it, and the stuff that we went through, and blah blah blah, right? Because we have a God that we are the Most High God's children, right? We are the Israelites, which means He who has power with the Most High, right? So. You know what I'm saying? Or we so he is prince with the Most High, right? So it says this. Just understand this. Let's walk this really slow. It says, for I am with thee, said Yahweh, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, right? He says, but I will correct thee in measure. So then we go through the stuff that we go through collectively as a people. But he says, I will correct thee in measure, meaning he just, pull out that belt every now and then and pop us a few times. When your child is acting up and they touching a socket or something like that, got a little toddler that's touching a socket, you might, kind of tap their little hand real quick, to tell them, stop it. So he corrects us in measure, right? Then it says, and will not leave thou unpunished, right? So he would, so he's going to correct us, because a good parent is going to chastise their child, right? If you see your child doing bad and you don't do anything, you just watch them do it and you just be laughing, or you pull out your phone and you just, you know, video recording them while they doing something silly, you're not chastising them. I mean, then what type of parent are you, right? So the Most High God chastises, right? And he says, but I will correct thee in measure, and I will not leave thee altogether unpunished, right? So, you know what I'm saying? So that's, and that's how the Most High wrote. Let's get, then it says, back over here, it says, for not as much, hold on, read it right. It says, for not as with other nations whom the Lord patiently forbear to punish, till he become fullness of their sin, so he dealt with us. So it's like, look, it's not like how we do with the other nations, because the Bible says that the Most High God is long-suffering, right? But he deals with us right away. Whenever we mess up, we see that correction right away. And the Bible says that he chastised them who he loves, right? That's why, look at India, right? Look at India over there, right? They've been following gods in Krishna, Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, all them people that they got over there. They've been doing that stuff for eons, right? I mean, they're one of the world powers right now. They're not the world power, but they are a world power, right? The Most High didn't take their glory for them. But if we were to do that, everything we just read, that happens to us, right? Because we are not to do what they do. We are to do what the Most High told us to do, right? That's why when we don't do it, he chastises, right? Let's get a Micah real quick. Micah 2:10. Micah 2:10 says this. It says, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. And that's the thing. Here in America is not our rest, right? Because he sent us here to chastise us, right? He didn't send us here for us to, like, be all like trying to be the next Michael Jordan, or Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, and all that stuff, right? Now, okay, now a few of us get some millions and billions. Okay, cool, but you gotta understand that it said, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. This is not our rest, right? He sent us here to serve a punishment. It's just like when you go, to jail, unless you just built for that jail life like that. You go to jail, you don't go to jail and just like, all right, and just, you go to jail, you serve your time, you accepted your punishment, then after that, you get released, right? You don't try to go there and start, joining the gang, and now you became the plug, and now you moving drugs, and now, now you done probably caught a body up in there and stuff, right? Now you became part of the atmosphere, right? Instead of just serving your time, you became part of the atmosphere, and now you got more time, right? You went in there for something little, and now you got probably life now, right? So don't be that guy, right? So it says, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted, and it shall destroy you. That's what happens when we assimilate ourselves into this society. It destroys us, right? It destroys us as a people, because we become not ourselves, right? Because you cannot become yourself in this society, because this society is ran off of white supremacy, whether you like it, believe it, understand it or not, right? The biggest religion, the biggest government, the most influential way of life, the most, It's basically it's white supremacy. You can find that on every inch of the globe in some form of fashion. America, of course, has the highest dose and concentration of it because it's the, you know, the birthplace. But it is sprinkled everywhere because that's what governs this place. Because who who's in charge? Who's going around bombing different nations for not following what they tell them to follow? So they make the rules, and so this place is governed off that, right? So it says, because it is polluted and it shall destroy you, even the sores of destruction, right? So this place has been detrimental to our people, right? You know, because we got to understand what they love will destroy us as a people. The things that they love and enjoy is very detrimental to us. You gotta understand that if you haven't already, right? And because to the point that a lot of us just don't even want to associate themselves as a black person, right? They say, well, I'm just American. Okay, yeah, I'm black, but I'm in America, right? Just as crazy as you want to be. But anyway, and it says, back to 2 Maccabees 6:15, lest that being come the height of sin, afterwards he should take vengeance on us, right? So because when we become like those people, then that pisses the Most High God off, and that goes right back to what we speak about in Deuteronomy 28. Chapter 28, verse 15 down to 68. All those lists of punishments that he will do and have done and will do, whenever we disobey. And these things happen collectively, right? And then it says, and therefore he never withdraw his. Hold on. He says, for not as with other nations whom the Lord patiently forbear to punish till they become with fullness of their sins. So he dealt with us, lest that being come to the height of sin, afterwards he should take vengeance on us. So he like, look, that's thank God that he deal, like whenever we mess up, he get us right then and there, right? So as soon as we do something like what, he don't hesitate to get us. He said, yes, thank God that's how he acts with us, and he's not like how he does with the other nations, right? Because again, it sounds cool when it says that the Most High God is long suffering, right, and slow to wrath, right? That sounds cool, right? It sounds cool, but like the analogy I like to use is like the FBI, right? The FBI doesn't arrest you the first time they see you committing a crime. They build a track record, a history, a whole dossier on you before they take you to court, right? They have a whole everything on you. So by the time they pull up in front of the judge and say, look, that's what we got, there's no other choice but to lock you up, right? That's why they have the highest conviction rate, because they just don't lock you up on the first time they see you do something. They wait. They're like, oh, okay, that's what he on. All right, that's watch. Let's watch for a minute, right? Then that's how the Most High is. So if you can understand that, then you can understand what it means to be long-suffering and slow to wrath, right? So then it says, let's get Luke real quick. Okay, Luke chapter 10. And verse 6. And it says, and if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest upon it. So the Son of Peace is not here in America, right? And it says, and your peace shall rest upon it. So we have no peace here, right? So going back to what we just read says, "Arise ye, this is not your rest," right? Because it says, "And if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest be found. Your peace shall rest be found," right? Rest upon, right? Christ is not here in America, right? Sadly, to tell people, right? I know that's breaking news right now. You're hearing it first right here. Christ is not here in America, right? No matter how many churches they built on corners, right? I was riding down the street. I swear, I think about like at least four churches on one street. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? That's called robbery. That's called thievery, right? Because all four of them churches is asking for your hard-earned money and ain't teaching you nothing, right? So it says, and if the Son of Peace be there, your peace shall rest upon it. So we can look at this place and tell that the Son of Peace is not here. This place is not Christ-like. I mean, even their commander-in-chief, number 47, said, you know, I'm not going to heaven. I'm not going to heaven. You know, that's what he said, right? That's for the good guys. That's for the good guys. Heaven is for the good guys. I'm not going there. That's what he said, right? So, I mean, what does it say? If when the head is sick, so is the body, right? Look who's the head, right? Look who's running this joint, right? The inmates really got the building. I mean, literally, this man has what, 30-something, 40-something felonies, right? The inmates have took the building. This is crazy, right? So back over here. Matter of fact, let's get Ezekiel real quick. Get Ezekiel chapter 20. Chapter 20, verse 43. And it says this. And it says, And there shall ye remember your ways and your doing, wherein ye shall be defiled. And that's where we at. We're here in America being defiled, right? Because we're being subjugated to their laws, their oppression, the unjust murders that they have committed against us. All manners of crime of humanity have been committed against us. So it says, and there shall ye remember your ways and all your doing, wherein ye have been defiled, and ye have loathed yourselves in your own sight for all your evil that ye have committed, right? So we're thinking these things, right? We're like, why do these things happen to black people? Black and Hispanic people. Why are we in this condition? Why, the statistics say the things that they say. Why do the people treat us the way they treat us, right? So we're thinking of these things, and we're remembering how our ancestors sinned against the Most High God, and how it was prophesied that these things were going to happen to us in the latter days. And guess what? We are those people of the latter days, right? So that fell on us, right? So, and it says this. And ye loathe yourselves in your own sight for all your evil that ye have committed. Ye had known that I am the Yahweh, when I have wrought with you for my name's sake, not according to your wicked ways, not according to your corrupt doing, O ye house of Israel, said the Lord. Right? So, like I said, the Most High God is, He's in control, and He punished, His people for the things that they have done, right? But again, and He's also going to, redeem us from the condition that we in, right? And and because that's what it's the big payback. Because these people that have, caused, this harm to us, they can't get away with it. But again, you know what I'm saying? So the Most High, you know, it's his way of correcting his people, right? By allowing these people to rule over us. You know, and it also caused the nation of Edom his sword, you know, what he used to what he used to correct the nations, right? So you know, so we just gotta understand how the Most High deals with us, right? And so then as we see these calamities and stuff taking place on us, and we're gonna remember, like, oh yeah, we are the Israelites. Maybe it's something we should be doing. Then God can stop allowing these people to oppress us, right? So, but yeah, back over here, and it says, but let this that we have spoken for a warning unto us, that now we have come to declare the matter in a few words. Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man, and well-favored countenance, constrained to open his mouth to eat swine flesh. So they took our dear brother Eleazar in his old age, right? And they, you know, strapped him down. They tied him up. They grabbed him by the face like this, you know, trying to force his mouth open to make him eat some pork, right? And it says, but he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live staying with such a abomination, spit forth and came his own according to the torment. So they forced it in his mouth, because they hold his mouth open and he spit it out, said, poof, get that out of my mouth, that nasty pork, right? You know, a lot of people, they be, you know, reaching for the bacon, you know what I'm saying? They be trying to, you know, go grab that piece of ham. Hey, come here a slice of ham, right? Our dear brother Eleazar spit it out, right? So, so then he said, what did it say? It says, but he choosing rather to die gloriously. So how many of you or us would rather die than to eat that swine, right? That other meat, right? This brother was, right? He says, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live staying with such abomination, spit forth and came with his own accord to the torment. He like, look, go do whatever you're gonna do to me. Whatever you say you're gonna do it, right? Then let's get 2 Kings real quick. Okay, 2 Kings chapter 4 real fast. Chapter 4 verse 40, right? So 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 40 says, so this is the spirit that our dear brother Eleazar was in. And this is what we gotta be, you know? When you see stuff like this, it gotta disgust you. It gotta tell you, it gotta let you know, like, no, I can't eat this stuff. The Most High God did not want me to eat this. It is against our law. And the Most High God will kill me for eating these things. You gotta understand that. And it says, so they pour out for men to eat, and came to pass they were eating pottage, that they cried out. So our dear brothers, they somewhere with these strange these people from other nations, right? They're not Israelites. So they bring out, you know, a pot of food for them to eat, right? So so what happened, right? So it says, so they pour out for the men to eat, and came past as they were eating of the pottage, they cried out. Oh my God, they yelled out, they cried out. What did they cry out? And said, oh man of God. He's like, hey, yo, check the, hey, everybody stop eating, right? Put everything down. Hey, thou man of God, there's death in the pot. What's in that pot? Death, right? What's that pork, shrimp, lobster, that little gumbo stuff that everybody like to eat? It's death in that pot, right? That's how our dear brother Eleazar felt when they was squeezing his face and forcing that little nasty little swine down his mouth. He spit it out. Because, what did it say? Oh, it says, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot, and they could not eat thereof. They didn't even eat it, right? He's like, no, thank you, right? Some people be like, well, I don't want to be rude. They offered it, so I ain't want to be rude. No, these brothers said no. They like, hell no, this is death. We're not eating that, right? And they couldn't eat it. This is the spirit that our dear brother Alazar was in. It says, but he choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such abomination, spit forth and came of his own accord to the torment. He's like, look, take whatever y'all gonna do to me, torture me, whatever, do it, right? As it behooved them, as it behooved them to come that that are resolved to stand out against such things, as are not lawful for love of life to be tasted, right? So, for the love of life to be tasted. So, the people that's trying to force them to eat. So it says it behooved them to come that are resolved to stand against such things that are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. So the people was like, all right, yeah, kind of looking at it like, all right, yeah, that's right, Alazar, right? So then it says but they that had charge of the wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the men, by taking them aside, brought him bringing flesh of his own provision. Right? So now these devils, these crackers, right? They're being very sneaky and being very cunning, right? And they're dealing with our dear brother Alazar, right? Because they thinking, maybe he's of old age, what I'm saying? He's confused, maybe, so, they're being kind of, so they like, look, check this out. Look, Alazar, we know you, everybody look up to you, you're the big man, and I know you got pride, and, and they good for that, right? That's why, we see this stuff happens on First 48 all the time, they start speaking to your pride. Like, look, Alazar, we know you got, you got your pride and stuff. You're a man, we get it. You know what I'm saying? So look, check this out. Okay, don't eat the pork. You don't gotta eat the pork. But here, you can eat here's some beef, here's some lamb. Just get this chicken, right? And go stand over by the pork and eat that. Eat your lamb, eat your beef, right? Just do that, right? You don't gotta eat the pork, but just stand by the pork, eat your stuff, then everybody's gonna be like, okay, yeah, Alazar did it, right? So like, just pretend you did it, right? Just like, when Obama was president, right? When Flint, Michigan, by the way, who still doesn't have clean water, right? When Obama went there and they had the little press conference and everybody sitting out there, he had his little cup of water, and the little cup of water sitting there, right? And he's like, well, yeah, the water's safe. The water's safe to drink. And everybody's like, Obama! And then, and so he grabbed it and he did. That's what he did, right? So they like, look, Obama, you gotta drink the water for the people. You just can't come on TV and be like, yeah, the water's safe. And, go ahead and drink it. Huh? It's good. You gotta drink it. So Obama drunk it. Drunk the water, right? Or at least put it to his lips to pretend like he drunk the water. So they're trying to get our dear brother Alazar to pretend like he did eat pork. Like, okay, you don't gotta eat the pork. Just pretend like you ate it, right? That's what they did to the man, right? Isn't that crazy? So then it says, but they that had charge of the wicked fest, for the old acquaintance they had with the men, taking him aside, and brought brought him to flesh of his own provision. So like, hey, look, Alazar, we mess with you. We cool. We got history, right? We get it. All right, look, okay, you ain't gotta eat the pork. Okay, you can eat whatever you want, but just, pretend like you did the pork. And it says, as such was lawful for him to use, and to make as if he did eat the flesh taken by the sacrifice commanded of the king. So yeah, just pretend like you did it, right? That in doing so he might be delivered from death, for the old friendship with them find favor. So he's like, look, we go way back, Alexander. I don't want to have to do that to you, but if you don't do that, I'm gonna have to do that to you, right? So they like, so just go ahead and pretend like, look, I'm even doing you a big favor. I'm telling you, you ain't gotta eat the pork. Just pretend like you ate it, right? Then, then we good. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I know you. You know what I'm saying? We cool. You know what I'm saying? Right? But check this out. First Timothy, right? First Thessalonians. You'll get First Thessalonians really quick, real quick. Boom, boom, bow, bang. Really quick. First Thessalonians. And let's get 5 and 22, I think. So yeah, 1 Thessalonians 5 and 22 says this. So this is what our brother understood, right? It says, abstain from the appearance of evil, right? So that's what the Bible says. It says, abstain from the appearance of evil, right? Meaning, you could probably not be doing anything, but it could look like you're doing something that somebody could see you. Then they could be like, oh, that person is, then you can cause them to stumble. Then you can be a stumbling block for them. And now they, probably look at you as whatever type of, look at you as, esteemed you as a, respectable person. Then you start to, then they see you what they may have thought you did. They'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it's cool that I do that. Okay, we can do that. Or you could break their heart because they think that they saw you do something and you really didn't do it. Then the little the one that was learning and then that might be a stumbling block for them. So, and Alexander understood that, being a high priest, right? So that's why it says abstain from all appearance of evil. And it says, in the very God of peace sanctify you wholly. And I pray, God, your whole spirit and soul and body be preserved blameless unto the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Mashiach Yahushua. So you want to keep yourself blameless, in these situations. So you don't want to do anything that's going to appear that you could be, committing an act of evil. So anybody could point a finger at you and put you in mix up a whole bunch of gossip, right? So it says, but he being considered discreetly and being his age in an excellency of his ancient years, in the honor of his gray head, whereunto he was come, and was most honest, educated from child. So he thought about it. He like, look, here I am in my 80s, all my life, I've been this man of God, a man of integrity. All my life I've been doing what God told me to do. I've been walking out straight and narrow, keeping the law, right? I've been doing this thing, right? And it says, in his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made and given by God, therefore he answered accordingly. What did our dear brothers say? What did our elders say? And willing and will from them straightway and send him. He said, man, this is the most gangster stuff you can say. He said, send me to the grave. That's what he said. He like, nigga, I'd rather die. Send me to the grave, right? I'm not pretending. I'm not eating it, and I'm not pretending. Send me to the grave. That's what he said. That's gangster. That's what we do, right? And that's, how many people, this man, like some people probably will, all right, well, I guess I could pretend to eat it. But he understood his position. He understood that, look, I'm a man of the community, right? I'm a high priest. I'm an elder. Because back then, people respect the elders and stuff. Back then, being of age, that was a good thing, and people respected you and stuff like that. So, they looked at you different, rather than today how, people treat the old people, right? Right? So, he like, man, I can't let them down, right? He didn't want to let the people down. He didn't want to be like these celebrities and these leaders that we see today that constantly let the people down, right? He didn't want to get caught up and be another black leader that got caught up in some type of scandal that ended up letting the people down. He didn't want to be that guy, right? So he says, put me in a grave. That's what he said. He says, and he answered according and willed them straightway and sent him to the grave. Right? He said, send me to the grave. That's what we are. For it become not our age, he said, in any wise to disassemble, whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being fourscore years old and 10, were now gone to a strange religion. He's like, look, I got a reputation. Look, I'm 90 years old, so people gonna be like, this nigga waited till he got 90 years old to start practicing a strange religion. This dude was, doing, keeping the commandments of the Most High God his whole entire life, all the way for 90 years straight. And he wait till now? You know how crazy that would look, right? That's real crazy, right? But a lot of people will, drop their integrity, for that check, for that, prominent position, right? People, they do that. But not this brother. And it says, and so they thought mine, so they thought my hypocrisy and desire to live a little time and a moment longer should be deceived by me, and I get stain of my old age and make it abominable. He's like, man, look, they gonna look at me like this nigga 90 years old, and he did that to save his life, right? Like, I'm already an old man, like what are we talking about here? I'm an old man, I'm not gonna be doing this cowardless act to try to save my life, right? Then it says, for the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. He like, look, although if I do this, I will save my life, but I just turn my back on the Most High God, and He ain't gonna forget that, right? And it says, and should I not escape the hand of the Almighty, neither alive nor dead. Because the Most High God, He can punish you in this life, or He can punish you in the afterlife, right? So men, their torments can only happen in this life, right? So we need to fear the one that can punish you in this life and the other life, right? So it says, wherefore now manfully charge this life, I will show myself such in one mind age required. I will show myself as one as my age required. So you're like, look, I've been, I'm a dying man, basically. Then it says, he's like, cause I'm an elder, I'm 90 years old, I'm a man, and people see me as a prominent man, so I'm gonna die being that man, right? And it says, and leave a notable example to such as be young to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy laws. And that's what, he like, look, I gotta be an example for the younger generation, how to lay your life down for the truth of the Most High God, right? Because a lot of people say they believe, but they don't believe. It's just that this stuff feels good. They give them a little time out the house. They can go to church and hear some good music, right? Go, congregate with some people. That's what they believe in, because they don't believe in the book, right? They don't believe what the words say. You know, because when you try to tell them what the words say, they're like, nah, not that. We don't want to hear that. You know, but, you know, they believe that they can find them a church where they can find the pastor there attractive. You know, they believe that. You know what I'm saying? That's what they believe. But not the book. Right? Then it says, and leave notable example in such be young men to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy law. And when he had said these words, immediately he went to the torment. So they immediately tortured him and, you know, did what they had to do. And it says, they that let him change the good will, they bear him a little before into hatred. So all that good kindness, like, hey, you know, Alizar, me and you, we cool. You know what I'm saying? I knew you for a long time. You know what I'm saying? We good, right? You know what I'm saying? Just go ahead and you don't have to eat the pork. You know what I'm saying? Just eat. Go ahead and eat this piece of lamb or beef, right? You know, all that good favor and all that nice, and you know how they be sometimes, right? You know, they be nice to you when they want something from you. You know, then when you're not able to, you know, no longer give them what they want, then that's when the devil come back out. That's when their horns come back, right? So they was being all cool with Alizar, right? But then soon they saw the sternness and how he wasn't going, because they figured, okay, he's an old man, we can probably coach him into doing that, right? But he stood on business, right? So then they saw that he was standing on business. Their whole temperament changed, went straight to violence, because those people are not capable of controlling themselves emotionally, right? Then it says, but when he was ready to die with stripes, so they beat him to death, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord that have the holy knowledge that whereas I might have been delivered from death, now endure sore pains in body by beating, but in soul am well content and to suffer these things because I fear him. So he fears the Most High God. He like, look, y'all might be, you know, I know I'm about to die, but I'm going to die for the Most High God and keeping these laws, because I fear the Most High God. I don't fear Antiochus and all that stuff, right? You know, I fear the Most High God, right? Y'all can destroy this body, but I fear the one that created it, right? Then it says, it says, but now when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord that have holy knowledge that whereas I might have been delivered from death, now endure sore pains in body by beating, but in soul am well content to suffer these things because I fear him. And thus this man died, leaving his death for example, a noble courage and a memorial and a virtue not only unto the young man, but unto his nation, right? And Eleazar was a brave man to stand on business and to die for the commandments of the Lord, and not to allow himself to, you know, end up corrupting the other generation by allowing them to see him, you know, partake in the things of the Greeks, when he's supposed to be a leader for Israel and steering them in the right way, right? So let's get chapter 7, right? Then gonna close out with 7 real quick. So we got to understand the hurt and the fight that our people had, right? And it's no wonder, even going back into our recent history, you know, how we survived the stuff that we went through, because we had that fight. You know what I'm saying? Like a dude said on that little slap video, got that dog in me, right? Our people had that dog in us, right? That's why we survived, right? And not to mention what we read, that the Most High had bestowed upon us his mercy. Allow us to get back up, right? You know, because he said, he would not allow, he's going to just jack us up a little bit, but he's going to allow us to, to fight through all those things, right? So, again, so chapter 7, verse 1, it says, "It came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken, and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips." So they took these seven brothers, right? And they tortured them and beat them and tried to make them eat pork, right? What's up with these Greeks trying to make us eat pork, right? But now, again, we eat it willfully, right? But our people were dying not to eat it, right? A lot of people use this excuse. You ask people, well, why you vote? Why do you be voting, right? You might say, well, voting doesn't help anything, so why do you vote? And people say, well, our people died for us to vote. That's why I vote. Well, guess what? Our people died to not eat pork, right? So I say, with that logic, we should stop eating pork, shrimp, crab, and lobster, because they died to not eat those things, right? Because, that's why we vote, because our ancestors, our forefathers, they died to get into those voting booths. So why don't we stop eating pork? Because they died to not eat this stuff, right? But one of them that spake first said thus, what hast thou asked or learned of us? He's like, look, y'all been beating us and torturing us. What have you learned from doing all this stuff to us? What should they learn? It says, we are ready to die rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. So these 7 brothers was on that. Like, we rather die than to transgress the laws of our father. That's what you should know, right? That's what you better know. I mean, you've been torturing us and beating us. You should know by now. We are ready to die for this, right? These brothers were zealots. That's what they were, right? And it says, then the king, being enraged, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot. So he like, heat that oil up. Boil, get that big old giant pot that we throw Negroes in. Because don't get it twisted. Esau is a cannibal. I know we make fun of those Africans and those people that be living on those little wild, crazy islands, but Esau is the cannibal, right? The original cannibal, right? So they got these big old pots that they're getting ready to stir fry our little brothers in, right? And this oil, right? So it says, and the king, being enraged, commanded pans and cauldrons to made hot, which forth being heated, he command to cut out the tongue of him that spoke first. So he's like, hey, cut dude's tongue out. Since he want to talk slick, cut his tongue out, right? Cut the man's tongue out. Then it says, and cut off the utmost parts of his body, and the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. So he probably cut off his ear or something like that, right? Then it says, and now he was does maim in all his members. He commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire and to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space of dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus. So as they getting ready, they heating up the pot. They see the pot out in the distance, so they like, look, we know we going up in there. Be brave, brothers. Be brave. We're gonna die like men today, right? So they encouraging each other. They letting each other know, don't be no punk about this stuff, right? We're gonna stand on business. Forget Antiochus and all them dudes, right? You see that pot? That's where we going, all right? There ain't no other way around it. That pot they heating up, that grease, that crystal oil that your mama got sitting on the stove, You know what I'm saying? That grease they heating up in there, that's where we're going. And we're cool with that. Right? And it says, the Lord God look upon us in truth, had comfort in us, as Moses in his song, which witnessed their faces, declare, saying, He shall be comfort in his servants. So they understood the law. They understood. They had faith in the Most High God on how He operates, right? And it was willing to die for the law, right? So when the first was dead, after this manner, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock, and when they had pulled off the skin of his head with the hairs, they asked him, Wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? Hey, look, we're gonna break all your bones, dude. Right? They already done skipped the man's face. You know what I'm saying? Done escaped the, basically scalped the man, right? Then to ridicule him about his brother being dead. So they're like, now we're gonna break all your bones, right? But he answered in his own language. He hit him with the Hebrew. He answered in his own language and said, La. He says, no. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order as the former did. So they threw him in the pot. It says, and when he was at the last gasp, he said, Thou art like a fairy take us out of this present life, but the king of this world shall raise us up, who had died for us, who had died for his laws unto a forever everlasting life. So he's like, look, it's cool that he understood that the Most High God, because we understood regeneration. And we talk about this. We had talked about this a while before, So basically, long story short, regeneration. When you die, your spirit goes back to the Father. You get judged. You die, you rest, right? Your spirit rests. You get judged. Then whatever that judgment is, you live it out in your next life, right? So when you see that little newborn baby getting pushed out into the world, that newborn baby is about to live out whatever judgment God put on them, he or she, for whatever they did in their past life before. So whether it be good or bad, they're gonna have to live that out, right? So he understood that. So, and he understood that by him dying this noble, life, or this noble way for the laws of God, he understood that in the next life what's going on when he come back, right? And so it's not like the Christian church. The Christian church would tell you gotta die, then you got the pie in the sky. No, heaven and hell all takes place on earth. The Bible tells you that judgment takes place under the sun. And what's under the sun? The earth is under the sun, right? So all that takes place here. So your life can be hell, or your life can be heaven, right? That's just what it is. So back over here. So it says then it says after him was the third made a mocking stock, and when he was required, he put out his tongue in that right soon, holding forth his hand manfully. So he like, look, they asked, they like, look, give us your tongue. He didn't fight him. He just stuck his tongue out. Like, look, y'all gonna cut my tongue off? All right. You know what I'm saying? He stuck out his hands. Like, y'all gonna cut my hands off? All right, cool. They right here. My tongue right here. My hands right here. Right? So then, it says, holding forth his hands manfully, and said courageously, These I have from heaven, and for his laws I despise them. He like, look, my hands, this whole everything, my body, my tongue, I got it from the Most High God. He gave these things to me, right? He gave them to me. But for his laws, his statutes and commandments, I despise these. I will get rid of these for that, right? What did Christ say? It's better that you enter into the kingdom with one eye than than to be, or it's better to enter into the kingdom with no limbs, no arms, right? Christ said that, right? I'm paraphrasing, of course. Then it says, so what did he say? Then it says, and said courageously, these I have from heaven, and for his laws I despise them, and from him I hope to receive them again, in so much that the king that were with him marvel at the young man's courage, for he let me rewrite, for that he not for he nothing regarded the pain. So he didn't he didn't even show no, like he was, he wasn't out, screaming, and he took it like a man, and the king was like kind of marveled and impressed, at the pride and dignity that the young man went out in, right? So and it says, and when this man was dead, also they torment and mangled the fourth in like manner, right? So when he was ready to die, said, thus it is good being put to death by men, to look for hope from God, to be risen up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. So dude was like, look, it is a great thing, for to be put to death by man, for the laws of God, and for your wickedness, and for you doing this to me, you have no resurrection, right? And it's true, because he's an Edomite, and according to the Bible, the Edomites have no chance. Like how that song used to, if you're a wrestling fan, back in the day, the Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon theme song, no chance in hell, right? Got no chance. That's not my opinion. That's biblical scholars would tell you, the Bible would tell you, biblical prophecy would tell you, all that stuff would tell you, right? And this dear brother right here is telling us. Then it says, where that boom boom boom. It says, for hope from God to be risen up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. After they brought the fifth also and mangled him, then looked he unto the king and said, thou hast power over men, thou art corruptible, thou doest what thou wilt, yet think not that our nation is forsaken of God. So he like, look, you think you just got all this power and you just killing and destroying and pillaging and all this stuff because you just this great man? Like, you don't understand. Like, only reason why you're able to do this because our people have sinned against God, and God had allowed y'all to, come against us as a punishment. That's just the only reason why you're able to do this to me right now. Because the God that we serve, he got the on and off switch, right? He got the keys to the life and the death thing, right? So he got all power. So don't think you just this big shot because you're doing this stuff. Basically what he's saying, right? And then he said, what it says, but abide a while and behold his great power, and how he will torment thee and thy seed. After him also thy brought the sixth, being ready to die, said, be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our God. Therefore marvelous things are done unto us. He like, look, don't. So the other brother came in with the same energy, like, look, just don't think you doing all of this because you just this great man, you got this powerful army, and y'all just, the Greeks are just so powerful. We sinned against our God, and God told us this was going to happen to us. So we know what's going on here. So and we're ready to die for this thing, right? So but think not thou take us in hand to strive against God, thou 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 shalt escape. Wait, hold on. It said, think not thou that take in the hand to strive against God, thou shalt escape on punishment. So you're like, don't think because you're striving against God. You're going against. You're being counter to what God wants, His natural order. So you think you can live contrite to the ways of God and nothing happens? Then you kind of sadly mistaken, right? And that's what he's trying to tell him. He's like, look, don't think you're going to go unpunished for the things you've been doing, to God's people. But the mother was marvelous above all, and with worthy of honor, with worthy honorable memory for when she saw her 7 sons slain within the space of one day, she bare with good courage. So even a mother was brave, and she was proud of her 7 sons that they went out, in a bravery manner that they did, right? So it says, because the hope that she had in the Lord, yes, she exhorted every one of them her own language, filled with courage, spirit, and strive, and spirit, and stringing up her womanness thoughts with manly stomach she had put onto them. So she hardened herself, she strengthened herself to suffer the things that she was about to see happen to her children, because she's a mother, of course, and that's tough to see all 7 of your kids get brutally tortured and unalive in front of you, right? And then to stand there and watch it, right? And then also, as you watch it one by one, have to talk to the next one and encourage them and tell them to be brave after you just seen the other one get unalive, right? So very strong woman, right? And brave, nowadays you got parents nowadays, not that you should be doing things that the police is looking for you, right? But for those that be having police looking for them, what I'm saying, the mother call you on the phone like, hey baby, why don't you come on home? The police just want to talk. They just want to talk to you. They just want to turn you, just turn yourself in. They ain't gonna do nothing to you. They just want to figure it out, right? She didn't do that stuff. She told her sons, look, yo, we ain't going out like that, right? We gonna die on our feet, then live on our knees, all right? Yeah, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with courage, spirit, and stringing up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach. She said unto them, I cannot tell how ye came into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it neither was it I that formed the members of every of you, but doubtless of the Creator of the world, who formed the generation of men, and from out of the beginning of all things, will also His own mercy give you breath and life again, as ye now regard not your own selves for His law's sake. So she telling them, giving them encouragement, like, look, the Most High God is going to raise you up again, because you've given your life for the law, statutes, and commandments, for His word, right? You standing on business. You're not faltering. You're doing what the Most High God told you. You're keeping your end of the contract that our people swore to. Now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachable speech, so he's thinking that the mother is like telling her son, like, hey, what is wrong with you? You better do what that white man tell you. Don't be talking back to that white man. What's wrong with you? Speaking to that white man like that. That's what Antiochus is thinking was going on, right? But he's reading this, because she's speaking to him in Hebrew. So he don't know what she's saying, but he thinking that's what she better be saying. But he's reading the thing like, hold on, what's going on here, right? Then it says, now Antiochus, thinking himself despised and suspecting it to be a reproachable speech, with the youngest was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assuring him with oaths that he would make with him both rich and a happy man. So he's thinking, okay, like in his mind, because like I said, he don't speak Hebrew, so he's thinking the mother is like telling him, like, look, go ahead and do what this white man tell you to do, right? He's just trying to help. Go ahead and eat the pork. He think that's what's going on here, right? So then he's also telling the young guy, like, look, I'm going to, give you a prominent position, with me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to make you rich. You know what I'm saying? And a happy man. If he would turn from the laws of his father, and that also he would take him for a friend and trust him with his affairs. So like, look, you can be in my cabinet, you know what I'm saying? You can be like a close, high-ranking member amongst me, right? But when a young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted to her that she would counsel the young man to save his life. He's like, look, talk to your son, right? Go ahead and speak to him. I'm trying to tell the boy, look, how much money I got for him. I'm trying to tell the boy, look, he can be a prominent, member in my organization, right? Then, and when he had exhorted her with many words, she promised him that she would counsel her son. She's like, all right, okay, I'll go talk to him, right? But she bowing herself towards him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake her country language in the matter. So, he's getting mad because she's speaking in Hebrew. He don't know what the hell they saying, so he's getting mad, right? So that's why I said, bowing herself towards him, laughing the cruel tyrant into scorn, spake in her country language on this manner. O son of mine, have pity upon me that bear thee 9 months in thy womb. She like, look, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry that you got to go through this. This is so bad. You watched all your brothers die. This is horrible. I get it. You know what I'm saying? I just have to watch all my sons die. And she like, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in the womb, and had gave thee suck 3 years, and nurtured thee, and brought thee up unto this age, and endured the troubles of education. I beseech thee, my son, look upon the heaven and the earth, and all that therein, and consider that God made them of things that were not, and so was mankind made likewise. Fear not this tormentor, but being worthy of thy brethren, take thy death, that I might receive thee in mercy with thy brethren. So she understood regeneration, because she understood. She's like, look, go ahead, you die like a man, just like your brothers. I need you to die like a man, because the Most High is going to raise you up again to me again in the resurrection, right? In the regeneration, right? So she understood that. Then while she yet speaking these words, the young man said, whom wait ye for? I will not obey the king's commandment, but I will obey the commandment of the law that was given unto my fathers by Moses. He's like, look, you ain't got to tell me all that, mama. I'm standing on business. You should already know I'm going to stand on business. And thou has been the author of all mischiefs against the Hebrews, so not escape the hands of God. So he's telling dude, like, look, Antiochus, your wicked butt has brought this devastation on this land. You will not escape the hands of God, right? For we suffer because of your sin, and though the living Lord be angry with us a little while for our chastising and correction, yet shall he be at again with his servants. Meaning, like, yeah, he jacking us up right now, but he gonna restore us. He gonna, we gonna get back cool again. There's gonna come a time and a place where we're keeping the laws, statutes, and commandments, and he's gonna take us, and we're gonna be the greatest nation on the planet, just like he promised, right? But thou, O godless man, because that's what these people are, Antiochus and the rest of his people, right? On down, all the way down. But thou, O godless man, and of the other wicked, and of all other wicked, of all most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of God. Like, look, don't be bragging and puffed up and thinking you this mighty king, this mighty warrior, because you taking down the servants of God. Like, for thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of Almighty God, who has seen all the things. Our brethren who now have suffered for short pain, for death under God, a covenant of everlasting life. But thou through the judgment of God, thou received just punishment for thy pride. You're like, look, we died for the laws of God, but you're gonna die for your pride, right? But I, and which was kind of also end up being prophecy when we continue reading it on. What happened to this filthy, dirty man, Antiochus? Then it says, but I, as my brethren, offer my body and life for the laws of our fathers, beseeching the God that he would speedily be merciful unto our nation, and that thou be a torment and plague, mayest confess that he alone is God. Ooh, that's cold. And it's stripped out too, because I'm thinking as I'm reading this verse right here, I think this actually is a prophecy, because he kind of basically died the same way that he's describing here. Then it says, and that in me, okay, then it says, and when the king being enraged handled him worse than all the rest, and took grievously that he was mocked. So he didn't like the stuff that the guy was prophesying about him. So he did him in way worse than he did the other 6 brothers, right? And he did them kind of bad, Then it says, so this man died undefiled and put his whole trust in the Lord. Last of all, of the sons, the mother died. So then after they killed her 7 sons, she had to watch all 7 of her sons die in front of her. Then they killed this nice little sweet lady, this sweet righteous woman that raised her son up to be men, right? And not no little punks. And so it says, last of all, after the sons, the mother died. Let this be enough now to have spoken concerning the adulterous feast and the extreme tortures. So he's like, look, man, I can tell you all the stuff that these people were doing to us, but this is enough right there. We're going to end it right there. I could tell you more, but it was so much evil that these people were doing to us. So that's how he ended it, right? And we're going to end it right there too, right? And we, pick it up, another time, right? So, as we can see, man, these people has, how they was getting down on us. And lucky, the Most High God had the Spirit, put on, our brothers and sisters to not, falter and willing to die for the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High God, right? And, that's how we have to be. We have to, know what we believe in and be willing to stand on what we believe in, right? And don't, go to the right or left, right? So, hopefully that was edifying and all that cool stuff. We understand, getting a little better understanding of the history of our people and the stuff we have to go through to maintain that land of Jerusalem, right? You know, leading up to the time of, you know, the New Testament when Matthew and everybody up in there, right? You know what I'm saying? So, so yeah, hopefully, you know, that was, you know, edifying and, you know, and all that cool stuff. I'm gonna say peace, you know what I'm saying? We on this, you know, feast of dedication, you know what I'm saying? Shalom, celebrate, we're gonna keep the party going. I'm out.